Formula One and IndyCar are both considered to be the premier single-seater series. These two high-octane series have captured the hearts of motorsport fans worldwide, attracting the biggest names in racing and boasting some of the most cutting-edge technology in the industry. However, the two series are run very differently, with unique rules and regulations that set them apart from each other. Stay tuned as we explore their similarities, differences, and what makes each series truly special. When it comes to motorsport, there's nothing quite as exhilarating as watching a pack of single-seater cars roaring around a track at breakneck speed. And while both F1 and IndyCar share many similarities in terms of their car designs, the two series have very different philosophies when it comes to how they approach the sport. Car designs. For starters, IndyCar operates on a much lower budget than F1. While F1 teams are known for their lavish spending on R&D and engineering, IndyCar teams have to be smarter with their money, making every penny count. One of the ways they do this is by using the same chassis across the board, which is manufactured by Dallara. This means every team starts from the same basic platform with the same aerodynamics and suspension components. It's up to each team to fine-tune their cars to suit their drivers and tracks. This approach has some distinct advantages. For one thing, it keeps costs down. Teams don't have to spend millions of dollars on designing and building their own cars from scratch. It also means that the racing is more competitive, with less of a gap between the top teams and the back markers. And since every team is using the same chassis, there's less emphasis on aerodynamics and more emphasis on driver skill and setup. And speaking of setup, that's another key difference between IndyCar and F1. While F1 teams are constantly developing and upgrading their cars throughout the season, IndyCar teams generally stick with the same basic setup from race to race, focusing instead on fine-tuning their cars for the specific demands of each individual track. This means that IndyCar is more about strategy and understanding the nuances of each circuit rather than just throwing money at the problem. And speaking of circuits, that's yet another area where IndyCar and F1 diverge. While F1 races exclusively on road circuits, either existing tracks or custom-built street venues, IndyCar also includes oval races on its calendar. These races pose a unique technical challenge, as the cars have to be set up to handle high speeds and constant left-hand turns. Also, there's a matter of team sizes and liveries. While F1 is all about uniformity across the field, with each team fielding two cars and presenting them in identical liveries, IndyCar is much more flexible. Teams can field anywhere from 1 to 6 cars, and they don't have to be presented in identical liveries. This can make it more challenging for fans to identify teammates on the track, but it also adds an element of visual interest to the racing. Engine performance. Regarding engine technology, IndyCar and Formula One have taken very different paths. While IndyCar relies on a more traditional approach with its 2.2-litre V6 twin-turbo engines, Formula One has embraced hybrid technology with its power units. The horsepower output of the engines in each series is also vastly different. According to Honda's figures, IndyCar engines can generate between 550 to 700 horsepower. In contrast, it's widely believed that all 4 F1 engine manufacturers have achieved the 1,000 horsepower mark. However, both series have strict rules in place regarding engine usage. IndyCar enforces a 4-engine rule per car for the entire 17-round calendar in 2023, with grid penalties for any additional engines required. F1, on the other hand, allows a limit of only 3 engines and their associated components for the entire 23 to 24 race season. It's clear that both IndyCar and F1 are pushing the boundaries of engine technology in their own ways. While IndyCar's engines may not be as powerful as their F1 counterparts, their focus on reliability over the course of a grueling season is no small feat. On the other hand, Formula One's hybrid power units may be more complex and expensive, but their sheer power output is truly impressive. Top speed. One of the interesting things to note is that both series use different types of tracks, making it challenging to determine which one is faster. However, based on top speeds, IndyCar wins out. Scott Dixon took pole for the 2022 Indy 500 with a 234 mph run, while the typical top speed for an F1 car is around 205 mph. Valtteri Bottas hit 231 mph while slipstreaming at the high altitude Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez in Mexico City in 2016. Formula One cars are theoretically capable of higher top speeds if set up to do so. However, the engineering focus of F1 cars means that they wouldn't be able to sustain it for as long as an Indy car. The focus of F1 cars is on generating downforce and achieving high cornering speeds. F1 cars accelerate faster, corner with more agility and grip, and are capable of incredible top speeds. But IndyCar wins out at the very top end of the speedometer. IndyCar raced at the Circuit of the Americas in 2019, a venue also used in Formula 1. This provided an excellent opportunity for a direct comparison of lap times. In 2019, Will Power set the pole time in IndyCar with 1 minute and 46 seconds and an average speed of 115 miles per hour. Later that year, Valtteri Bottas took pole for the F1 Grand Prix with 1 minute and 32 seconds, 14 seconds faster, with an average speed of 133 miles per hour. These figures highlight the differences in the approach to racing in both series. While IndyCar focuses on a level playing field with the same chassis and engines for all teams, F1 prioritizes innovation and development to achieve the fastest possible lap times. Scoring points. In terms of scoring points, IndyCar and F1 have some notable differences. In F1, only the top 10 finishers are awarded points, with the winner receiving 25 points and the 10th place driver receiving just 1 point. Meanwhile, IndyCar has a much more generous point system, with the winner receiving 50 points, the second place receiving 40 points, and the third place receiving 35 points. Points are awarded all the way down the field, with those finishing below 25th to 33rd receiving 5 points each. For the Indy 500, points are doubled, and the top 9 qualifiers also receive points. Regarding bonus points, F1 recently introduced a point for the driver who sets the fastest lap of the race as long as they finish in the top 10. IndyCar, on the other hand, rewards its drivers with bonus points for pole position, leading at least 1 lap, and leading the most laps. Pole position earns 1 bonus point, leading at least 1 lap earns 1 bonus point, and leading the most laps earns 2 bonus points. In F1, teams also receive points based on where the drivers finish, excluding the bonus point for the fastest lap. In IndyCar, it's the engine manufacturers, Honda and Chevrolet, who receive points. The manufacturers receive the same amount of points as their highest placed 2 drivers, with a winning manufacturer receiving an extra 5 points and the manufacturer on pole receiving an extra point. This differs slightly for the Indy 500, where 2 points go to the manufacturer on pole and 1 to that which is fastest on the first day of qualifying. Race format. In Formula 1, the race distance is usually set to cover a 189.5 mile distance, which generally takes around an hour and a half to complete. However, there is a 2-hour time limit set in case of unforeseen circumstances such as bad weather or safety car periods. In contrast, IndyCar races on ovals have no time limit and run to distance, while races on road and street courses have a 2-hour time limit, which can be changed at the discretion of the race officials. Typically, IndyCar road and street races last around an hour and 3/4 if uninterrupted. Now, one of the major differences between F1 and IndyCar is the location of their races. While IndyCar primarily races in the United States, with only 1 international race in Canada in 2019, Formula 1 races across 5 continents, spanning Asia, Europe, North and South America, from March in Australia to December in Abu Dhabi. And as a result, F1 has a longer season than IndyCar in terms of both the number of races and the calendar months in which they take place. IndyCar also still has refueling as a component of its races, something that's been banned in F1 since 2010. F1 mechanics now change the car's tyres in around 2.5 seconds, while IndyCar pit crews change the tyres and fill the tank with approximately 84 litres of fuel in under 10 seconds. Qualifying format. F1 uses a 3-part qualifying session in order to determine the grid known as Q1, Q2 and Q3. Q1 is 18 minutes long and all 20 drivers head out to set their fastest lap time. At the checkered flag, the 5 slowest drivers are eliminated, with the remaining 15 heading into Q2. The times are wiped and the 15 drivers do the same thing again, the bottom 5 being knocked out at the checkered flag, and the top 10 move into Q3, with the fastest times determining starting position for the race. However, Formula 1's qualifying format has undergone some changes in recent years, including the introduction of sprint qualifying at select Grand Prix in 2021. In this format, the usual 3-part qualifying session is used to determine the starting grid for a short sprint race, with the finishing order of this race used to set the starting order for the main Grand Prix event. There were 3 sprint weekends in 2021 and 2022, but there are set to be 6 in 2023. IndyCar qualifying is more varied and depends on the type of event. For road and street courses, the drivers are split into two groups, and the 6 fastest drivers from each group move on to the next segment of qualifying. The fastest 12 drivers then have 10 minutes to set a lap, with the fastest 6 advancing to the fast 6 shootout. For oval events, drivers go out one at a time, with the average of their 2-time runs determining their qualifying time. The Indy 500 has a unique qualifying format that takes place over 3 days. On the first day, every driver sets a time from an average of 4 laps. The top 9 drivers then repeat the process in the Fast 9 shootout, while those below 30th compete in the last row shootout to determine the final grid positions. Overtaking aid. Formula 1 and IndyCar have both implemented different systems to address the challenges of overtaking in motorsport. Since 2011, Formula 1 has relied on DRS, known as the drag reduction system, which allow cars to temporarily lift a section of the rear wing on designated straights to reduce aerodynamic drag and facilitate overtaking. This system has been successful in encouraging more overtaking maneuvers during races and has become a staple of the sport. On the other hand, IndyCar has its own unique overtaking system known as push-to-pass. This system, which was first introduced in 2009, allows drivers to temporarily increase the engine power by approximately an extra 50 horsepower by pressing a button on the steering wheel. In 2017, the rules were changed to give each driver up to 200 seconds of extra power over the course of the race rather than an allotted number of uses. This allows drivers to deploy the extra power strategically, backing out of failed overtaking maneuvers without wasting extra seconds of boost and deploying it at a later opportunity. In addition to the push-to-pass system, IndyCar also employs different turbo settings on super speedways. The Borg-Warner turbos are set to run at a 1.3 bar, but at the Indy 500 on Fast Friday and qualifying weekend, this is increased to 1.5 bar, producing approximately 90 horsepower more. While both systems serve the same purpose of facilitating overtaking, they're quite distinct from each other. Audience size. IndyCar commands a respectable viewership in the United States. In 2019, the average audience for an IndyCar race across all of NBC's affiliated channels was 5.45 million viewers, which is no small feat. However, when compared to the global juggernaut that is Formula 1, IndyCar's viewership pales in comparison. In 2020, Formula 1 achieved an average audience of 91.5 million viewers worldwide, which is a staggering number. In fact, it was the highest cumulative audience for the year since 2012, indicating that the sport's popularity is on the rise. IndyCar's viewership also saw an increase of 9% from the previous year, showing that there is still a strong appetite for motorsport in the United States. And despite the disparity in viewership between IndyCar and Formula 1, both series offer their own unique strengths and appeal to different audiences. And there you have it, all you need to know about these two premier single-seater series. Which of these motorsports do you love? Let us know in the comments down below.